This is Kfm Mornings with Darren, Sherlin, and Sibs.
One of my favorite human beings in the whole world. This is the legend. This is the man. This is the international psychic medium, Mr. John Edward.
Hello, guys. Hello. What an intro. Thank you. A little intimidating.
And someone you can actually call your friend, Darren.
He is. I've stayed in that house. That's the house I stayed in, John?
Yes.
He does know you, John, because every year
He
it's
really
like,
does.
next year. No, not sorry, guys, next year. I'm like, oh, making up stories.
Well, I was hoping to get there, but, a little pandemic got in the way, so...
Everybody thinks I just make up stories.
Darren, how many years actually has it been now?
That we've known each other. It was 2007.
Wow.
Yeah, 14 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. No, and that would have been your first tour in South Africa. You've toured quite a few times here.
Yes.
You are the standout psychic medium globally. You had a show that was huge in South Africa, called Crossing Over with John Edward, because it was a brand new phenomenon to us. We were like, what is this guy doing? This guy's speaking to dead people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a brand new phenomenon here in the States, too. Although there had been other psychics before me that had guested a lot on daytime television, nobody had actually hosted their own show. I actually wanted to do a radio show. Darren knows this. My first love is radio. And the reason why I liked radio is it's intimate, it's interactive. People didn't have to see you. So it's kind of like, I'm very expressive. So if somebody went stupid while I was reading them, I literally could have that moment of being like, how do they not know that? Where on TV, I have to I still do it, but like at some point, there's got to be some level of like decorum. But the producer that I was reading said, would you do your own show? And I said, yeah. I said, I'd like to do a national radio show where people can call in and I can answer questions and help them evolve. And she goes, no TV. And I laughed and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not TV. I go, I'm radio. I prefer radio. I want people to know who I am and what my name stands for, but my face isn't important. And then she goes, now I really want you on TV because you don't want to be on TV. So I gave her the opportunity to pitch a show. I did not think it was going to happen. And I figured we would land in radio. And the reality was we landed on television and stayed there for 4 years, internationally syndicated. It was an amazing experience and one that I did not take lightly. And whenever I hear people say that they reacted to it the way they did, it makes me feel like then they read my energy because that's the energy I brought to it. Like, I'm going to make people look at this. I want people to look at this with a critical mindset. I want them to understand the possibility and the potential.
And why did you think it captured the world the way that it did?
I don't know if I could actually answer that. Maybe an astrologer would be able to say like the stars aligned or something. Maybe it's the fact that I'm just a sarcastic New Yorker who like could, be like direct and do this simultaneously. So there was no like, there's nothing gimmicky about it.
No
and
secret sauce.
I think because
No tea leaves.
no tea leaves, no. And what's interesting is that like I love all of the metaphysical tools that are available to us, whether it be astrology or tarot or numerology or psychometry, all of these tools that help us to discern information, insights into what's happening around us, not to live your life by it, but to kind of like have it as an understanding or as an option of what we're deciding to do. And I think because of my personality, like by nature, I'm a teacher. So when I started working as a kid at 13, I started working at a local deli and I wound up training people in the deli on process, on how things should be done. When I left when that deli was sold, literally the next day in a video store in the same parking lot where I did the same thing. I took on the position, but then they always used me to train the people that came into the store to work for them. Then I worked in a hospital. Everything I did was about teaching and training. So I think by nature, it's who I am as a person. And I think the difference maybe is that I brought that to the place of the world where I was teaching people. So it became a classroom for people that were navigating grief.
And your mom did this. At what point did you realize, wait, I think I've got this too?
My mom and my grandmother and my mom's brother used to do this in the sense of, so they would bring psychics into the house to do like readings for family members and friends. They didn't actively do it themselves, but they were very much into the subject matter. My dad was a New York City police officer and a career Army guy, not a fan of the subject matter. And I was not allowed to be around it for most of my young life. It's a hard, fast rule. I do not want my son around that crap. We'll say that. Yeah. And my mom and dad divorced when I was about 13, and I moved into my grandmother's house with my mom. And that was where all this stuff used to happen. So I want to say from 13 to 15, a few times a year they would have people come and they would treat it like a party where they did like coffee and cake and a gathering and they had a psychic in the back room. But I was the kid who was making fun of everybody that was there. Like I was the person who was completely disrespectful. I was irreverent, smart ass. Like I was really bad.
What an origin story.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's kind of pretty funny. Like that's why I think I have a really good tolerance for skeptics, because I'm like, yeah, I get it. I was there. Like I karma. I get it. I was really, really disrespectful. Long story short, they had a woman come to the house. Her name was Lydia Clark, and she was like blowing everybody out of the water. Like she was like legitimately knocking it out of the park, and everybody was coming out of the room going, "Oh my God!" And after like 2-3 people, I was like, "Come on, guys," And I'm like looking for the holes, and I was having a hard time doing with her what I successfully had done with some of the other ones. I went for a reading with her and I said to my mom, I go, well, I'm not going to help her. I go, I'm not going to like do what you people are clearly doing. Let's see what she can do, And she changed my life. That reading changed my life. It was like August of 1985. And her opening statement, she like took my high school ring. For those that, if you can't see this, I'm kind of like holding like a ring in my hand and I'm putting it to my forehead. And she closed her eyes and she just started speaking. And she said, she goes, you, meaning me, have highly evolved beings of white and gold light, and they're ready to work with you. And I'm here today to put you on your path. Wow. And I literally remember sitting there because she wasn't looking at me. And I just remember thinking like, she's crazy. This woman is absolutely Lulu, She was so serious and she was commanding, and that got my attention. So, and then she went into what I say was part 2 of the reading, which for about 10 seconds made me sit up in my chair and go, oh. And then I was very quickly able to go, I can apply this to like 5 other guys in my class.
Yeah.
No, strike 2. And then the last part, man, she just like nailed me. She like came out with like names and people I was hanging out with. She came out with circumstances that if my mother knew about, I would have been dead. And all I could think about, like literally, seriously, like all I could think about was like, oh my God, this woman is friends with my mother. Like if she tells her, like I'm going to be in big ass trouble. So I lied. I legitimately lied to her. And I went, I don't know what that is. And then she literally went like this. She went, okay, well, let me tell you how it's going to wind up anyway. And she proceeded to tell me, and what she said happened. And some of it was not logical. So when I say not logical, I'm a very analytical and logical person. So I'm like looking at what she said and how she said it was going to wind up. And the leap from here to there was too far without a piece of information. And I didn't have that one piece of information. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
She got it in the reading. And when it got revealed to me, that second part that got there was like, oh my God. So that got my attention. And if somebody robbed your house, if you came home and found out that there was a break-in your home and somebody was like touching your stuff and was in your drawers, that's the feeling that I had. So I say, I kind of felt like she violated my energy in some way. And my goal in learning about the subject matter wasn't to embrace the first part of the reading and like go do readings. It was more like, I want to put an alarm system in because if she can do it, that means other people can do it. And I don't want anybody else in my space. And as I was doing research, I remember reading these books going, this is not psychic. This is common sense. Like everybody does this. Yeah. And then all of a sudden my journey began because now I had to reframe things that I didn't know. I didn't know they were psychic. I just thought I was smart. Like I knew stuff. Like I just thought like, if you don't know better, you just take it for granted. Like that's normal. Like we all do that.
So were you born with this gift, or is it an ability that we all have? Are some people just naturally more in tune to other energies? How does it work?
First, I want you to read to me every single night before I go to bed. That voice is like lulling me.
John, you married? I know your wife. She's Portuguese. She's not going to tolerate this.
John, can I tell you why my voice actually sounds like this? Darren,
Tell me.
has told me what you can do. So this is what I sound like when I'm a little bit nervous, because I've lost some people and I don't know at what point they're going to be like, Awe, hello, tell our girl this or that. So
it happens. I actually forgot your question. I'm so sorry.
were you born with this gift?
So I like to take the word gift and change it to ability, I think, as you framed it the first time. So yeah, I think the gift is the connection. So when anybody, a listener, yourselves, when anybody recognizes the world of energy happening around them, and we connect with that again, and we come to that place of recognizing that there's a survival of consciousness and that love doesn't die and that we still are all connected, that to me, that's the gift. The person doing the reading is just an iPhone for me. It's just a piece of spiritual technology that the spirit, the energy, our ancestor is using in that moment to get a message across. It is not about the phone. It is about the message. So for me, it's an ability. And I think that some people might have a genetic predisposition to develop quicker and faster. And I use the analogy of fitness. If you take like 5 people, men and women, and give them the same exact regimen, you give them the same exact diet, and they do the same exact cardio, they're going to develop differently based upon their genealogy and their genetics. So I feel the same way about this. Like, I might have a genetic predisposition. I clearly was born into a family that would be supportive of this, right? I did not have to, I mean, some people that I talk to that, you know, are my elders in this field, what they went through, insane compared to what my journey was. I had to read books and learn, right? Their journey was they had to confront their family's faith. They had to confront people thinking they were crazy or schizophrenic. Like, they had to confront stuff that, you know, thankfully I did not. But I think it's an ability that we all have. I don't think it's an ability that we all have to do for other people. And there's a big, big canyon for me there. And the downside of crossing over, that if I can go back and say, if there was one, if the me of today could go back to me of then, I would probably say, listen, you need to hit this point really, really hard, because a lot of people watch Grey's Anatomy, but not a lot of people go, I want to do brain surgery right now. Lie down, you know, like, hold on a second. You're choking. Quick, grab me a knife. I'm going to cut something into your larynx. Like, there's not a lot of people who'll do that, but something happened with this subject matter. And I think it's because it gets married to the ego. So people that are insecure and people that want to be seen as special, once they have that spark happen, all of a sudden they might have the ability. And now they put their focus on it. So now that ability can be utilized. But what's below that, to me, always has to be looked at. Like, I always have to look at that. So when somebody comes up to me and they go, I do readings, I don't go, that's great, we're part of the same family. You know, I actually I kind of take a step back, because I don't know where they're coming from. Yeah. Like, you could be talented at what you do, still be unethical. You could be amazing at what you do and not be a nice person. So for me, it's got to be about the ethics, the responsibility. And I feel blessed again, because I started at 15. So I made a lot of really juvenile mistakes, ego-driven and ego-based. If you met me at 15, 16, 17, 18, I was not speaking like this. I was probably trying to get you to date me, and I was reading you to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was using the ability in a way that would not be cool. Right?
Did you ever go to the clubs and the bars and go, hey, lady, hey, you're going to date me? You say no, but I know that that's going to turn around. So just come on.
I didn't do that because, you know, if I did go, I like dancing. So if I did go to a club, I specifically actually went there for the dancing, not to like meet up with people. And because of the energy work, I was never a serial dater. Like, I always had to feel a connection to a person. And then, you know, quite a bit because of what I do, you would fall into the friend zone pretty rapidly, because all of a sudden they were now looking at me as, like, you know, solid counsel about the relationships they were in, rather than like, oh, I want to date you. So I quickly became not a prospect.
So you weren't meeting people and being like, hey, you're cute, your great grandmother has just come into the room.
I don't think I've ever told the story on air. I did something kind of like unprofessional, and one of my colleagues that was like my mom's age reprimanded me. And that was the beginning of turning around my respect for the subject matter, because she literally told me I was being disrespectful and irreverent. Again, I was like 16, but my mom's baby sister, we all lived in the same house, in my grandmother's house. And she asked me if I would do a reading for her. So it was nighttime and we were in a back room. So it's a lot of windows. And during the winter, there was like no heat. So we would put plastic on the windows. So it kind of insulated a little bit. And then, it gave it a creepy kind of sound because when the wind blew outside, the plastic would kind of go in and out. And then I had like a candle lit and I'm in the dark room with her and we're doing a reading and she was a little bit nervous. So I said to her, I go, you need to be very, very quiet. You need to be like really, really, really concentrating. And I said, I need you to have your hands out on the table like this. And I very slowly backed myself up. And I had told her, I go, you never know what you might hear. And her name was Roseanne. So I backed myself up. I walked all the way around the circumference of the room until I came right next to her. Now her eyes are closed in a dark room and she's somewhat nervous. And I got as close to her ear as possible. And I went, Ro. And she literally levitated in the seat. I don't think I'm allowed to actually say what came out of her on air. It was inappropriate. And then I thought it was the funniest thing. And then I told my colleague, Shelly, and she ripped me a new one and said to me, if you're not careful, if you don't treat what you do with respect, it will be taken away from you. Sure. So, I had that moment of like, whatever, but I listened. I totally listened.
I've watched you do many readings and you go into a different sphere. It's almost like, it looks like you're having an out-of-body experience and you're not making eye contact. You're looking past the person that you're reading. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? How does this whole thing work?
So when I was doing Crossing Over, they thought it would be a great idea to take me and put me into the audience sitting with people. That went away pretty quickly because the moment they put me into the audience, it's like the audience was water and I was a tea bag. All of a sudden, they would want me to introduce like segments, coming up next on Crossing Over, we're going to see blah, blah, blah. And then they would, they have to set up their lights. They have to set up their cameras. And when they left me alone there, what they would inherently always wind up seeing was this. I would like literally gaze over to an empty part of the studio and start getting information. Yeah. So I didn't know this, but they labeled it, I think in season 1, he's going to the movies. He's going to the movies. Hurry up. He's going to the movies. It became like code.
Running out of time.
That was a funny way to say it because it's kind of like that. I do feel like I'm watching something else. My kids, literally just this week, I told them that story. I kind of like phased out for a second. And my daughter was standing there when I came back and she looked at me and she was like, and who maybe were you speaking to? Where did you just go? And it happens. So it's a focal point. So when I'm doing a reading for somebody, I literally will not look at them because if I look at them and they make a face, it can throw me. So I want to have complete objectivity, which is why I don't like reading people that I know. If I know somebody, I usually refer to them somebody else. Imagine if your life was a book and now I'm reading like 1 or 2 pages in the middle of some chapter in a book in your life. And I have to try to figure out, what is this about? Or coming into a movie that you've never seen before and watching like 2 minutes of it and trying to get a feeling for the characters and who people are and how they're connected. So whatever I see, hear, and feel, and the technical term is clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance. So clairvoyance is seeing, clairaudience is hearing, clairsentience is feeling. And it's not like I hear an out loud voice, it's more of a thought voice. So I'm paying attention to my thoughts. I'm paying attention to what I'm seeing. And then things come through in my frame of reference. So what's interesting is when I'm doing events in different places that have different cultures, it sometimes lends to humor at my expense because I might not understand what something culturally, means. And I might misinterpret, but you'll get why I'm saying it. So I like to make sure that I deliver the information and then ask people to validate it rather than go, who here knows John, right? I'd rather say, I'm seeing a J name like John. I feel like it's connected like this, blah, 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 blah.
And John, do you ever get it wrong?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Which is why in front of me at all times, I have this.
Trust.
It is a rock that says trust.
Who gave
and then
you
in front
rock?
of that rock, a friend of mine actually gave it to me. Yeah. And then in front of that is a rock that says always. Trust always. But the reason why is that I know that they are 100% accurate in their intention of coming through. I could misinterpret that. So I literally take it on myself and go, listen, I can get it wrong, but let me tell you what I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling. Let me get it where it needs to go without, somebody kind of interrupting. One of the greatest gifts I was given when I first began was from a woman that I studied with. And she said to me, just know you don't have to be right all the time, but you have to strive to be as accurate as you can. Like, I could stand in front of a crowd of 1,000 people and be 100% right, because I could let somebody go, oh yeah, that's for me. Oh yeah, that's for me. But then that means that I am not honoring the process. So I have to sometimes, and Darren's seen it, where I have to go, no, it's not that. No, it's not for you. No, I'm not getting that. I'm getting this. Or no, I'm not, I'm over there. So there's a lot of that kind of comes into having to discern, what's coming through.
That must be quite a lot of fuel for skeptics, kind of people waiting for you to slip up. How much of your energy has been used up dealing with the skeptics?
I really do mean it when I say I have a respect for what they bring to the party. I think that we need them. There's two things that I think we need to look at. One is skepticism and one is cynicism. Cynicism means nothing's possible. No matter what I see, hear, or feel, I've made up my mind. There's no shifting that, right? So cynicism is not healthy. Skepticism is healthy. And here's why. Everybody on the planet can look around and see that disinformation is something that is prevalent everywhere, right? Whether it be through social media, government, pandemic. It's literally in the last 2 years, you can literally see how the concept of what some call fake news, whatever, is used as a weapon and as a tool. So the only thing that we have against anything, whether on the smallest level in your family or on the biggest level globally, is to be a critical thinker. And to be a critical thinker basically is saying you are skeptical about what you're perceiving, hearing, feeling, and acknowledging, reading, and looking at, and you need validation and backup. So I think that when we have validation and backup and you can support something, that to me is important. And I can definitely have a conversation with people who are not believers. It's when the vitriol and the personal attack comes in that's where I draw the line. So I'll block somebody if they're being disrespectful or they're attacking me personally or trying to define my motivations, because they don't know me, so they can't really define that. But when someone comes at it and goes, it's not real, it's this, people research it, like when they do all of that, then I sit back and go, well, that's their journey. You are talking to someone who has an entire episode of South Park dedicated to them. You do not get that. You do not get that unless you've permeated the zeitgeist of society. However, so sure, I do field, the occasional, you're the biggest douche in the universe on Twitter, but then there's a lot of those same kids that would never have known who I am if not for that episode. Yeah. And that episode now makes them go look me up. And then they find YouTube clips and old shows and articles. And then some of those people have been helped because they've done the research. So I'm very aware that my role isn't to be a pop star. I'm very aware that my role is to be a teacher. And sometimes the teaching means that you have students in your class that are not respectful. And you got to make a difference with them too. And there's somebody that I a couple of years ago wrote an article about me, the work, the Evolve community. I walked off the stage and I read this article, and it was not a positive piece about me or the work, but it was done with such respect and professionalism that I thanked her. I literally thanked her and retweeted the article, at which point she said, I'm so surprised that you actually read this. Never mind, retweet it. And I said, well, you know what? I've been attacked so much. To have somebody attack me respectfully, that deserves to be elevated. Yeah. And then we went back and forth on Twitter and we became friends. Yeah. Now, do I think I changed her belief? Not even a little bit, but we became friends, right? So it's like we can agree to disagree and still connect.
But you know what, John, I think, there's skeptics in every realm of society, and I do believe, as you say, the skeptics do play a part in whatever it is, not just this. I think skeptics keep you honest. It keeps whatever industry honest. They kind of like 100%. The arbiters. It's the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative. You know what I say to people when I talk about you and they go, oh, it's hocus pocus, it's whatever. I think there's a big misunderstanding where it's not about you going, hey, look, I can tell you a whole bunch of things about you. It's never about that. It's about a very important message that needs to be delivered at that particular time. I think what some people fail to understand, the amount of comfort you bring to people that have lost loved ones, it's unquantifiable. It really is. And I've experienced this firsthand. It's a gift. It really is, you know. That's what works for me. Might not work for you, you know.
But see, that's the impetus of why I do what I do, for that reason. And I think crossing over, I was already doing this work for 15 years professionally when that show actually happened. When it happened, what I really took from that was I used to read people and then I would get a letter in the mail. Like, I didn't see stuff. They started doing follow-ups on the show, and I got a chance to see what you just said happened in people's lives, the shifts and the changes and the ripple effect. And I remember the humbling feeling that brought about was overwhelming. And it made me take the work even that much more serious. Like, I was like, oh, like, look at the impact, you know?
I mean, it's not only delivering comfort to the bereaved. The FBI has called this man to help to solve crimes.
Can you confirm this, sir?
I could tell you that I have a friend who has been affiliated with an organization, and from time to time, that friend would reach out and ask me for help.
Your first language is obviously English. Now, you go into another territory. So now you go to England, and there's a lady that comes through, and her uncle happens to have passed, and he is German, and he doesn't understand a word of English. How does that process work?
My first invitation ever when it came to media came from Nippon TV in Japan. They wanted to fly me over and do stuff. And I was like, no. It's like, I could barely get the name James in English. I'm like, how am I going to do Japanese, you know? So the control freak in me was like, I don't think I can do this. So I think my guides were a little bit frustrated with me because I said no a lot early on. And then I started to say like, okay, let me expand. And I felt like I needed to expand so that I could learn for me, like, how would it work in a different place? So the only place that I could tell you I have a problem would be if there's a cultural reference that I don't understand, that's not something that I'm familiar with, or I could get a parallel for, or names, if I can't pronounce a name or if I can't get the name. But I'm half Italian, and two cousins that were all Italian picked me, I want to say about 22 years ago, for a reading. And they came to me, they said, you're half Italian, right? Your mom was Italian. Your grandmother's Italian. I went, yes. She's like, yeah, that's why we're here. You speak Italian, correct? And I was like, I do not speak Italian. And she said, well, then maybe we shouldn't do this because our family only speaks Italian. I said, well, it's going to come through in energy, and I speak English, so I'm going to perceive it in English and give it to you in English. I go, so as long as you're able to understand English. So anyway, we go through the whole reading, and her grandfather decides to mess with me, and he gives me these, what I thought were names. And I get phonetic spelling, so I'll get what something sounds like. You know, Darren, I'm going to hear is just the D, but a name like Ed, I'm going to hear the D softened. So a lot feels like linguistically, like, how would I say something? So I say, imagine we're in a really crowded restaurant or disco, and you can't hear, but you can see someone, and they try to mouth to you, or you have to mouth to the person a name. The way that feels in how you say it is how it feels for me when I want to go say it. So I try to figure out, you know, like that. But if someone's got a unique name, I'm going to have a hard time. But he started giving me what I thought might have been a street or a town in Italy. So I phonetically write out just the letters, and I pushed it over the desk to them. And two of them simultaneously like look over. They didn't talk. They didn't do anything except burst out laughing. And I'm like, what? What does that mean? What is that? And the girl goes, I can't tell you. I'm like, what do you mean you can't tell me? She's like, no, it's a phrase in Italian that he would use. She goes, but I can't tell you. I'm like, you have to tell me. So in Italian, however you would say this, I phonetically wrote out that the grandfather was calling me a crook.
The irony.
And I literally had a moment where I was like, what? and they're crying, laughing, and they're like, no. She goes, you're in good company. The mailman was a crook. The milkman was a crook. Anybody who did service was he's a crook. That guy's a crook. He's a crook. So that is like one of the few times, that I've gotten stuff. And my wife's family's Portuguese, as you know. So like the pronunciation of names and stuff, not exactly English. Yeah. So I'll get the first part of something, or if I'm familiar with it. I remember on Crossing Over, I got a very unique Greek name once, but these are like few and far between because I don't have it in my background. Now, if I had it in my background, if I had heard it, then I could say it's like this. So, the expansion of information is always something that they could use in my frame of reference.
John, listen, we're going to do some readings in future. How good is that? All right.
I love to. Thank you.
So what we're going to do is open it up to all the Kfm Mornings listeners. And if you would like a reading from John Edward, I'll explain the process in just a minute. But just know that this man is available to be booked for readings. There's a 3-year waiting list.
Oh, wow. Like a Birkin bag. Hey?
You have to wait.
You have to wait. Get in line.
Yeah.
You're a Birkin bag, John. But I have one quick question because,
Sure.
Crossing Over was 20 years ago.
Yes.
And there are people who were born after, that part of history, that cultural zeitgeist. How would you introduce yourself to them in 2021? Who is John now?
So the me of today is like Crossing Over times 10, in the sense that I want people not just to be read and hear from Dad. I want people to be read, hear from Dad, understand what's happening in their lives, be a critical thinker, and apply energetic principles to making decisions in their life to become more empowered. That would probably be the most biggest difference. I think in 2008-ish, 2009, around there, I launched the first online stuff, and we've been going ever since. So, and it was at a time where it wasn't popular. Like people were like, nobody's going to pay for that online. Like nobody does that. You got to be free on YouTube. And I was like, no, I want people that are going to treat this like it's a tuition, where they're going to substantially want to be a part of something. So, here we are, season 14 or 15 of Evolve, and
it's incredible. It's incredible. John's books, you have to read them. You need to find them on Amazon, whatever, but they are incredible books. I've read them all. John, sure, you've been very gracious with your time, sir. What we're going to do is now we're going to move in. We're going to get some readings in the next coming weeks. All right. So,
awesome. Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you.
John, it's always a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, from New York City, Mr. John Edward. Yes, please. Ciao, John.
Cheers, John.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Bye.
This is KFM Mornings with Darren, Sherlin, and Sibs.